All right, today we're going to talk about alignment. Okay, what is alignment? So we're talking about alignment in relation to graphic design. So it's the structure, the framework of a composition, okay? And what it does is it creates order, right, in the composition. It organizes the different elements, whether it's text, images, or borders, or anything graphic. And you can also group things together by aligning them. All right, so overall, it's creating these visual connections that make your composition look intentional, look professional, look clean, look like it's ordered. Okay, so most of the time, your viewers or readers will not really notice your alignment. It's not something that they're conscious of, but it is something that creates that order that when it's not there, things will look unprofessional and amateurish. Okay, just people generally just feel it, right? You feel something's wrong when things are not aligned. So everything, like in this poster, should be connected to something else on the page somehow. Okay, so find a way to relate it, and you can see this is kind of like a hand-drawn look, and you can just see how the text wraps around the image. They're going for kind of a very filled, thing. I wouldn't say this is the most easy way to read text, but it makes it interesting to look at. So there are 4 different ways to align text. The first way is just to center your text. And this creates a very balanced design and works with not a lot of content, all right? Paragraphs, sentences, that's not going to really work centered. Okay, that's not how we read it. It creates problems, as we'll see in a little bit. But it works for a very simple design, not very dynamic. So it's going to be a very kind of like stable, unexciting design for the most part. So here's some examples of some centered text. And you can just see how it does not work with paragraphs and sentences. It kind of ruins the way we read things. Paragraphs become like almost impossible to see, and it just harder to get back after you read a line to find where your place is. All sorts of problems. But here's an example of a poster that's centered. Again, very simple, very short, like words, maybe a phrase. Here and there, but it'll work with a very simple design and not a lot of text. The next way is left aligned. So this is the normal way that we see text. This is what we're used to in our society. Okay, we read left to right. Things are aligned on the left. The rags are on the right. These are called rags. Now this visual example I got is not the greatest because these are not normal rags. Normally they're a little closer to this, but even this is a bit off. They're a little more even, but this is just what we see. We can see paragraphs a lot easier, and it's good for a lot of content. So if you have a lot of text, or I would say a sentence, if you have anything more than a sentence or more than a phrase, right? You have a sentence or a paragraph, you've got to left align it. Don't try anything weird. Don't center it. Don't put it on the right. Left alignment is the way to go. All right. There's another composition here. Right, just a line to the left. Here is a book cover, a line to the left, and another one. Okay, right aligned. So this is not the way we read normally. So this creates an element of irregularity. It can make you look at it, right? Because like, oh, what is that over there? That's something out of the ordinary kind of thing. So you can draw attention to things. It can create a dynamic kind of look. It's not symmetrical, so it can tend to be a little more dynamic, a little more exciting. And again, this usually also only works with short phrases. Wouldn't use a sentence, words, logos, couple words, address, things like that. Okay, here is a little ad aligned. Now you can see everything's over to the right, but it's not total lined up because they're going for this kind of sloppy, grungy kind of feel, but still brought all over to the right side. Okay, and then lastly, we've got justified. So justified is kind of like centered. But what centered, but worse as far as and some bad in a different way maybe. So justified is kind of like centered, creates this even look, and it's very monotonous and non-dynamic. So to me, if you want to bore your reader, justify it. If you want to make it look, so it sacrifices any kind of interesting layout for neatness, and neatness, I'm not sure is the way to make your people want to read your text. So what it does is it adjusts the space between the words, the kerning between those letters, and it makes it fit. Okay, so you'll get these irregular breaks that make things kind of difficult to read and just don't look good. All right, so even though it's trying to be neat, it creates these big holes, like you can see here in this newspaper example. Big holes there that just start looking odd, and I don't know. I'm not sure how this became the norm for newspapers for a long time, for decades and decades and decades, maybe 100 years. I don't even know. For a long time, this is the norm, but I don't think it's at all pleasing to read, and I think it makes all that information in the newspaper look very monotonous. Okay, so here is a poster. We've got a lot of things going on here. You can use lots of different alignment methods at your disposal. We've got tune in tonight to a live television event, all this centered, right? All this up here. And then we've got this, the main text, or the most important text here, right? In red and big, Dave Matthews Band. We got that brought over to the left side, with some text up there, Fuse Presents. And you got some of this aligned to the right a little oddly, but they try to fit it in with this logo. Not really lined up with a margin over here, which is what I would say to do. You've got this text centered in the middle. Not a big fan of this decision. This text centered right here in this little circle here. That seems fine, I think. I can't really read it with the quality of this poster. But here you've got it's hard to read with the resolution or the quality of this. See how something prepares for tonight's big show. Watch the exclusive video. So that's a lot of text for centered. It just, and plus another graphic design boo boo is they capitalized it and made it bold. Not the way you want to approach text that you want to read, like a paragraph or sentence. You want to keep that for things like Dave Matthews Band, like a heading or something, right? If this is a paragraph, it should be written in uppercase and lowercase and not centered. Bad decision here. This is all good. Watch commercial free. All aligned on the right side. Okay, centered the website down there. Brought this over here, this little logo. I would have lined it up with this margin. So they've got two margins going on, which also isn't a great idea. So some good things in this poster and some bad things, right? So they got alignment here, the T and then the F and the D, B, and then this right here, which we'll talk about in a second. But then they don't have this aligned. Like, come on, let's line that up as well, right? Same with this over here. They have margin there. They should have kept the same thing over here with a T coming down, and then watch a commercial they should have put that over in alignment with that as well. Or they should have moved everything over if they needed more room and lined it up a little thinner. Okay, another thing here. This is my biggest. Well, these two things are my biggest pet peeves here. This one's my biggest pet peeve. Let's just say that. Live from something, beacon, blah, 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 whatever it is. They aligned it to this. They center aligned the text, and it's not in the center of the page. That to me is just a horrible idea. Okay, centered. Put it in the center. Right? If you want to align it, with all this stuff here on the left, align it on the left. Look, it wouldn't take much to put a live from over here, and then squeeze in whatever text that is right underneath it still. Then you got the beacon, whatever it says there. So off-centered center text alignment to me is not the greatest. So now saying that, it kind of works in here because they got it in a circle. So generally, I would say big no-no, stay away from it, unless you've got some reason. Like this little circle to put it in there and it kind of fits and looks like a stamp. Okay, that'll work for me. But this definitely does not work for me. And this 100% does not work for me either, right? But anyway, some good things, some bad things, but a good example to check out. All right, this poster here. right? Just simply everything aligned right to the left side. All right, so here's something interesting. They've turned their alignment over a little bit and tilted it. So now you've got this T, and then you've got all this text here, right, with aligned to the left side, and then you got the rags. These are rags, where it's kind of got that ripped look there. Over on the right side, like it should be. I'd like a paragraph break in there too, to make that look less monotonous. But okay. And so it's kind of like center aligned, but they turned it. So that's interesting, and I think that's a really good decision. You can still use the same alignment. You've just got to think. You just have it at an angle, and I think that creates a really dynamic composition. All right, very not dynamic composition, but very simply got this alignment going for all this text here on the left side. Here they kind of centered all this or justified it. Okay, I guess it works. Not my favorite, but it's kind of like its own little logo within something. So I'm not sure about that whole thing altogether. I probably would have not have made another logo and tried to do this like matching thing again that they've got here. This is fine, right? You don't need to do it all over again. I would have arranged this a little differently to make these statements a little more readable. And that brings us to the end. Hopefully you understand a little more about alignment in graphic design and aligning text.